Phoenix, the hottest city in the U.S. and a surprising oddity for the state of Arizona. Arizona is covered in mountainous terrain, but for some reason the Phoenix area is very flat and low elevation. The reason why is a little more complex than you may expect. Welcome to Camelback Mountain, an iconic hiking destination here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. As you can tell, hikes like Camelback are kind of far and far between in this area. You can see behind me, it's very flat. Phoenix is the 5th largest metro by population and the 11th largest by area. But why is it so darn flat? I'm at the Salt River. Yes, there are rivers in the Phoenix area. In fact, the area that encompasses the Phoenix metro is known as the Salt River Valley. Small to medium-sized rivers like the Salt River are why Phoenix was settled in the first place. Farmers who stumbled upon the region in the 1860s took advantage of the year-round warmer climate and stable access to water. And thus, Phoenix was born. The Salt River flows from high mountainous regions from the eastern central part of Arizona, but let me briefly overview some of the other main small rivers of the region. I'm here at the Agua Fria River, which originates near the central parts of Arizona near Prescott. The Verde River also originates near the central parts of the state and is one of the main tributaries for the Salt River. The last river I'm going to talk about today is the Gila River. The Gila River runs through essentially all of Arizona. Starting in the high mountain regions of southern New Mexico, it goes through basically the entire state and is the southernmost tributary to the Colorado River. So every other major river that we talked about in Phoenix eventually ends up in this one. As rivers interact with low elevation areas after leaving mountainous terrain, and especially in a region where they meet with several other rivers, it can result in quite a lot of flooding. These floods deposited a lot of sediment. This sediment organized itself, and over time it left a very flat river plain in its wake. There are several examples of this all over the world. Rivers are one of the main reasons why Phoenix is so flat, but we do have to talk about geology to get the full picture. The geology of the Phoenix area is extremely complex, but I'll try to make it as digestible as possible using some of the leading theories. We're trying to analyze why Phoenix is so low-lying compared to its surroundings. At an elevation of just over 1,000 feet above sea level, Phoenix is one of the lowest points in the interior part of Arizona. This is because of 3 reasons: crustal thinning as a result of some funky plate tectonics, sinking and stretching due to its location within a region known as the Basin and Range Province, and its proximity near the way higher elevation Colorado Plateau region. Starting with crustal thinning, Earth's upper layer, known as the crust, is usually around 35 to 40 kilometers thick, but Phoenix has crust that is closer to 25 to 28 kilometers in thickness. The leading theory as to why that is as follows. Earth's upper layer is split into plates. These plates carry continents and oceans. They are driven by deep, slow-moving currents in the inner parts of the Earth. An ancient oceanic plate, known as the Farallon, migrated under the continental North American plate for several millions of years, and around 40 million years ago, as it was traveling at a very weird flat angle under the North American continent, it exerted a lot of heat and pressure onto the overriding North American plate, and this caused the crust in that region to thin. Now moving on to the Basin and Range influence, as the Farallon did its thing, it also gave birth to the San Andreas Fault in California. This fault puts immense northwesterly pressure onto the North American plate, causing a large portion of it to stretch, which generated cracks in the North American crust called normal faults. These normal faults would line up next to each other, causing the regions in between them to be forced upwards, while the regions beside them would sink. Thus, you get your basin and you get your range. This can be seen in the mountains to the south and west of the Phoenix area. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Colorado Plateau influence. The Colorado Plateau is a huge area of high elevation in the states of Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado. It was forced up near the Phoenix area. In some ways, this uplift has been going on for tens of millions of years and actually still continues today. It is likely uplifting presently due to remnant tectonic forces from the previously mentioned Farallon plate. All these three geologic events have culminated in Phoenix being in this strange position it is today. The thin crust already predisposes it to being low elevation. Pair that with even further lowering it from it being a basin in the basin and range, and then put it right next to a region that's super high in elevation, so you're going to have a lot of water flowing down it, thus depositing a lot of sediments, making the area very flat, and you got Phoenix. There is some mountains in the actual immediate Phoenix metro, Camelback being one of them. There is a surprising lack of big mountains, and most of the area is flat. And this is probably because of the conflicting influence of all the regions I just mentioned. As the water falls on those upper regions in the Colorado Plateau, it has to obey the laws of gravity and thus flow downwards to a low point. And this adds another really crucial factor to our equation here. As the water wants to go down towards the Phoenix area, it carves a lot of canyons in its wake. These canyons act as choke points, which are really good spaces to build dams. Dams are a vital part of Phoenix. They store water, provide recreational spaces, and generate power for the quickly growing metro. There are a ton of dams that service the Phoenix area, set up on those aforementioned rivers, including Lake Roosevelt, the San Carlos Reservoir, Canyon Lake, Bartlett Reservoir, Horseshoe Reservoir, Apache Lake, also Lake Saguaro, and this one, Lake Pleasant. Reservoirs like this one act as giant water tanks containing all that precious water for the Phoenix metro. Reservoirs like these, while they look cool, can actually end up losing a lot of water in the process. This was an especially hot year for the Phoenix area. It saw over 113 consecutive days of 100-degree or more temperatures. In a really hot region like Phoenix, this can result in around 6 feet of water level drop just from evaporation alone. For a lake like Lake Saguaro, this can equate to 300 million cubic feet of water being lost from just evaporation alone from one reservoir. Phoenix also uses its water in a myriad of other ways. 40% to agriculture, 35% to city water supplies, and the remaining 25% is for additional purposes like industrial use and or is lost via evaporation like we just mentioned, which ultimately culminates to this. I'm back at the Gila River. Does it look a little different? Well, that's because it dries up almost completely because of the water usage from Phoenix and the surrounding agriculture. But what does this drying out of rivers mean for the greater Phoenix area? As the natural impacts of these rivers become less pronounced and there's less river flooding contributing to the general flatness of the area, the region is going to become slightly more rugged from flash flooding, thermal expansion and contraction of rocks, and violent bouts of wind, gently sculpting the landscape into something a little more rugged and a little less flat than what it is today. Thank you for watching.